Hey everyone, welcome back to a Bright Idea podcast, a show where I sit down with entrepreneurs to hear about the aha moments that launched their businesses. I'm your host, Amber Key. Joining us is our guest, Cedric Singleton with J.Galt Financial Suite, a company that helps small businesses build business credit, secure funding programs, and provide financial coaching to ensure that businesses have the capital they need to grow and thrive. Cedric started his professional career as an officer in the U.S. Army, followed by a corporate career that spanned 3 decades. Upon leaving the military, he joined Abbott Laboratories, a biotech company, where he spent 27 years in multiple sales and marketing roles, including sales executive, advertising product manager, regional sales director, and global director of sales operations. Throughout his tenure, Cedric and his teams consistently achieved recognition for high performance and commercial excellence. From his success with Abbott, Cedric was recruited by Carrier Global to build and lead a new commercial revenue operations department as its global director. In that capacity, he led a team that generated double-digit revenue growth, and within 3 years, their annual revenue increased from $450 million to $1.2 billion. Recently retired from a 30-year corporate career, Cedric is now a managing partner with J.Galt Financial Suite. At Jaygalt, he is on a crusade to ensure that small businesses have the same level of financial success as large corporations like Abbott and Carrier. Cedric attained his BA in political science from Howard University and his MBA from the University of Memphis. He holds certifications as a trainer, teacher, coach, and speaker with the John Maxwell team. In this episode, Cedric and I break down the secrets to running your business like a Fortune 500 company. Whether you're starting a business or looking to grow, this episode is packed with the advice you need to thrive. Before we dive in, be sure to subscribe to the podcast on Apple, Spotify, or wherever you listen to podcasts. This is also a visual show, so be sure to check us out on YouTube as well. You can follow us on Instagram at A Bright Idea Podcast for updates on new episodes, behind-the-scenes content, and much more. And if you're enjoying this show, leave us a review. It really helps spread the word. All right, let's get started. Podcast. How are you doing today?
I'm feeling good. No complaints. My health is okay. The weather is so-so, but all in all, no complaints.
Yes, that's really good. I'm so excited to have you on the show. This is a long anticipated episode. I have a lot of business owners on the show that talk about their journeys, how they started their businesses, their aha moments. And I'm so happy to have you on here today because you're offering a very unique perspective into businesses, how to sustain a business. There's a lot of things. There's a lot of factors that go into entrepreneurship. And so I'm just really excited to dive into your journey, but also how you can help myself and my listeners out there who are entrepreneurs, and it's not for the faint of heart.
It is not. And no, I am looking forward to this as well. It's one of those unique journeys because I was on the corporate side for so long, and I am learning, sort of the difference between what I took for granted in corporate America that entrepreneurs just aren't aware of. And so to be able to bridge that gap, I think it's exciting.
Yeah, it's very exciting. And it's funny, we'll get into it in a second, but this is not, A Bright Idea is not my full-time gig. It is my side hustle right now, but I am in the corporate space. And it's quite interesting. I was listening to a podcast that you were on recently, and you were talking about how in corporate America, you have background in business and marketing, which we'll get into in a second, but talking about the risks that you can take in corporate that you don't have the opportunity to take when you're an entrepreneur, if you haven't set up your business in a way that can take some hits. And so that really resonated with me, just being that I'm going on a year now of this podcast. And while it started off as a passion, just really wanting to learn people's stories, now I have sponsorships, now I have to pay for resources. And oftentimes I'm like, what am I doing? So And so, I also work in corporate America. I work in marketing, and I just know that there are a lot of times where we up with these big ideas, and we have all of these, like all of these resources backing us. And a lot of times we hit our goals, and then sometimes we don't. But at the end of the day, you can still go home and you get a paycheck. But like,
That's exactly right.
here, it's all me. So yeah, I just thought when you were speaking about that on the podcast, I was like, wow, that really hit home for me.
Oh, good, good, good. Me too, by the way, because again, and I will talk about my journey, but it's been pretty much 30 years on one road that, as you mentioned, when you're backed by a big logo, sometimes not even a big logo, just,
Mm.
a company that's kind of structured, let's just say with all the resources that they need to succeed,
Mhm.
then you're one participant in that structure,
Right.
right? But when you own your own business, you're the whole thing. And if not structured the right way, then everything falls on you. And unfortunately, not only you, but like your family and everything else, because you don't have, the finance department of your company that's kind of budgeting, what I like to say, budgeting your mistakes, right?
Right.
So if you make a mistake, it's already factored into the business. If you make a mistake with your own company, what I hopefully can do is to at least give entrepreneurs, the education on how to best navigate that.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's a perfect segue into your journey. I know you started off in ROTC, you did some time in the military, and then you actually worked with the same company as my dad, where he started off in Abbott Laboratories, and you were in sales and marketing roles. Can you talk to me a little bit about that background and sort of what skills you were able to attain in taking on those roles that then led you into what you do now, which is helping businesses stay open?
Sure, sure. So my journey was really interesting because when I left the military, it was sort of unexpected. I was happy. I was newly married with a baby on the way and a 12-year-old stepson.
Mhm.
And I was going to be that military family that stays there for 20, 30 years and be okay. And then, as you mentioned, with Abbott Laboratories, there were a lot of medical companies that recruited young officers. They came on our bases and told us, that there's this other opportunity to be in corporate America. And it was very enticing for me. It hit all the check marks for me personally. So I left the military with a pregnant wife and a stepson who was not necessarily on board at the time.
Yeah.
And we were going to a place that we had never been, Corpus Christi, Texas. And I was going to be doing a job I had never done, sales. But I wouldn't take it back, and I don't think my wife would as well. I'm 30 years married, by the way.
Congratulations.
So I wouldn't take it back because the journey really was one in which I was able to really learn along the way about all of the different functions of commercial business. And I'm careful in saying commercial because I'm not in R&D, not in manufacturing, kind of behind the scenes. But the customer facing part of business, I was able to do sales, marketing, customer support, technical support, sales operations, all those things that really are is required to turn those products that are in the factory into revenue. So in learning those different sort of functional areas and of course increased responsibilities over time, what I was able to do is really understand what's required to really, let's just call it successfully, for the most part, be successful in accomplishing the different task of a business plan.
Mm.
um, within Abbott, and then I also worked for Carrier. And most companies operate this way. There's about a 2 or 3 month period where you build a business plan for the year, right? And that business plan has all kinds of parts into it. I won't get into all the details, but when you build that plan factors in, and this is where the entrepreneur does not have this. It factors in things that will probably succeed,
Mhm.
things that might succeed, and things that you may take a risk on. right?
Okay.
Because if you hit the home run, then of course, it's a big deal. But if you don't, it's already factored in that not everything's going to be successful. So that's the risk that is almost inherent in almost any business that's factored in. So, to kind of, I'll summarize this part by saying, I didn't realize, so for entrepreneurs and small business owners, that's a big gap, right? So I didn't realize, as I left corporate America, that all of the risk is on the business owner of a small business, whereas risk is factored in, when you work for, large corporations.
You talk a lot about your career, and you spent, almost 30 years in a corporate career. What do you believe that large corporations do that the small businesses can learn from?
Yes. So I think that the structure of a large corporation is really, I don't want to call it its superpower, but I think, most large corporations are built with different functional areas. Finance, that's what they do.
Mhm.
Sales and marketing, that's what they do. You have R&D and D and all those different departments, and that's what they do. So they specialize in certain areas. Now, having said that, if you're a small business, of course you can't do that because a little bit of statistics. There's about 33 million small businesses in America. This is
Mhm.
per Forbes, January of this year.
Yep.
And about 55% of those 33 million have less than 5 employees. 80% have less than 10 employees.
Mhm.
So you can't specialize like the large corporations. However, what you can do is simplify your business. And what I mean by that is when I was in at Abbott in particular, Abbott would we would call it planning season. So planning season was a few months of building a plan, and the plan was maybe 100 pages. I mentioned these different functional areas, sort of if you can imagine a book, each functional area had its chapter of that book, and they were going to execute that plan.
Right.
You can't do that, as a small business. So instead of this big plan, what I've been doing with my clients is really simplified it by saying you can create a 1 or 2 page business plan with one strategic goal supported by a few tactical activities.
Mm-hmm.
And if you are disciplined around that, you'll be fine. And so that would be the thing that I would say. You still have to operate like you have a business with different departments, right? Because there are different responsibilities that any business has to capture. But at the end of the day, determine what is it that's the most important thing for your business, say over the next 2 years. Just what is that one most important thing? And turn that into your strategic goal.
Mm-hmm.
Once and you may have to go around a few cycles to just make sure that you have hit that one thing. Once you hit that one thing, now it's time to say, okay, so what are the 2 or 3, and I wouldn't have more than 3 sort of actions, activities that I can build out to support that one thing. And that is your business plan. It's equivalent, from my perspective, to the 100 page business plan of a big logo.
All right, guys, can I get a little personal with you real quick? A few months ago, I turned 30 years old, the big 3-0. My whole life, I've loved birthdays. I love big parties and new memories with friends and family and opportunities. I never really thought about the number or what the next year could look like until this year, when something about turning 30 stopped me in my tracks, and I decided it was time to get a little serious. I started to reevaluate a lot of things in my life: what I wanted to do with my time, what I wanted to achieve in my personal life, what kind of woman I wanted to become. And I thought to myself, one of the first things I need to do is get my money right. Gratefully, I grew up in a household where we had conversations about money around the dinner table. Discussions about the stock market, debt, 401k, financial independence. No topic was off limits. I thought I was in a good place managing my own money until I started planning my future, and I had no clue where to begin. This made me turn to a financial advisor. Working with a financial advisor has been an enlightening journey that has brought me incredible value in more ways than I initially anticipated. Having a dedicated advisor taught me a discipline around finances that I hadn't experienced before, challenging me to prioritize my goals and align my spending with what truly matters. I've also come to better appreciate the worth of my time, realizing that how I spend both my time and my money directly impacts my long-term success. One of the most empowering aspects of working with a financial advisor has been learning strategies and techniques to make my money work for me. These are concepts that we just don't learn in school. From tax optimization to investment strategies and retirement planning, I've gained insights that I could have never developed on my own. Having someone guide me through complex financial decisions has been far more beneficial than trying to handle everything myself. With a financial advisor's expertise, I've been able to approach financial independence with clarity and confidence, knowing that I have a trusted partner who understands my aspirations and can help me make informed choices. Chosen Advisory Group caters to the ambitious, the established mid-career professionals, and those on the cusp of retirement who recognize the dedication required to attain financial independence. With their experience and clear professional guidance, you can transform your financial goals into a reality. Life is stressful. Money should not be. Begin your journey to financial clarity. You can schedule your complimentary consultation at www.chosenadvisorygroup.com today. I love that you touched on that because when I was doing some research on and sort of the theme of this conversation that I want to have today is about why small businesses fail and like what are some of the signs that your business is failing. As you'd mentioned, sometimes these companies are 5 to 10 people. They don't have the bandwidth, but also some people don't have the business acumen to even know like how to come up with that sort of plan.
There are two main reasons, and both of them are financial. Now, the business planning, that's another thing as well. But the two main reasons why they run out of what I call run out of runway is number one is cash flow. So more money going out of the business than is coming into the business, which that equation is going to be not good at some point, and you're just not going to be able to sustain the business.
Mhm.
But attached to that is the commingling of your personal finances with your business. And so what ends up happening is you have that dream, you have that passion, you see a problem, and you have this dream, and no matter what it takes, you're going to try to make it happen, which means even if you have to pull some of your own money and continue to pull your own money, and then maybe go to the bank and borrow money in which you're personally guaranteeing, and it's commingled with that business.
Yeah.
At that point, from my perspective, you no longer have a business, right? Because there's no separate business entity. You have, and this is the harsh thing to say, but you have a very expensive hobby, right? Because what you're doing is it's something you like, and we like our hobbies. I know your dad loves golf, right?
Yes.
But you love your hobby, and you're going to pour into your hobby. It really makes you feel good. But if it's going to be set up like a business, then there's some fundamentals that you have to do, starting with separating the finances of that business from your personal. There's a process of doing that, but that has to be done. There has to be what I call clarity. You have to have clarity between, how your personal life is being financed from how your business is being financed.
And so does that having two separate bank accounts for
Two se-
your business and your personal?
yeah. So there's a journey, but that's one part of it. So when you start to make that separation, one of the things that you have to eventually do, and I won't say that this is necessarily day one, but a lot of businesses start off by personally guaranteeing loans against their business, whatever that business is. at some point, you can start to use your EIN. I think I may have mentioned this before. So your EIN is like a social security number for your business. So
Okay.
imagine your personal sort of credit, right? And then your business credit. So, and I'm gonna try to really simplify this if I can. I can get a little overly complicated.
That's okay. This is good information. So we're
So,
all listening.
okay. So I'm gonna do the personal side. On your personal side, it's fairly straightforward. You buy anything, right? Once you turn 18, and it's almost like magic. That transaction, depending on your payment or lack of payment, is reported to
Mhm.
one or more of the consumer credit bureaus, TransUnion, Equifax, or Experian. It's done automatically. And they'll look at, your on-time payment. They'll look at your utilization of your credit limits. There are 5 factors that they automatically look at every time you make a transaction. Your mortgage, they'll know. So it's all automatically done. And then based on that, you will have a credit score that ranges from 300 to 850. And believe it or not, for some people in that real special space, up to 900. So that's the personal side. It's like almost we're all sort of accustomed to knowing what all those things mean. But on the business side, there are 3 separate business credit bureaus. Most of us are familiar with Dun and Bradstreet. Dun and Bradstreet is one of them, but there's also Equifax Business and Experian Business, and those 3 operate just like the consumer credit bureaus do for the consumer. They operate for the business if appropriately set up, and that's the big if. Now, what does that mean?
Yeah. What does that mean?
So what that means is your EIN is like your social security number for the business, but a credit profile has to be set up on your end and then registered to those 3 business credit bureaus for your business to even appear to those bureaus. So that has to, and there's a process of doing that. But for this conversation, just know that that has to happen, right? Once that happens, then you also have to intentionally work with lenders and vendors that actually report to those 3 business credit bureaus. So remember when I mentioned that on the personal side, any transaction you have, it's going to be reported to one of those 3 consumer credit bureaus.
Mm-hmm.
On the business side, only 7% of the roughly 4,500 lenders automatically report to those 3 business credit bureaus. So
Okay.
understanding, like you can be a very responsible business owner,
Okay.
you could be working with a lender, making your payments on time. 93% of them, they don't automatically report your good payment to those 3 business credit bureaus. So you have to almost intent, and there's a process of doing this as well, but intentionally work with lenders that actually report, right? So that's another. So everything on the consumer side is like automatically done. Nothing on the business side is automatically done. Everything has to be done sort of intentionally.
And so you said that you have to work with lenders. Who are these lenders?
Yeah. So a part of the reason why I partnered with J.Galt is that we actually have a partnership with probably a quarter of those 4,500 lenders that we partner with. So when we work with what we call members, we have, I don't want to call it special partnership, but there is a partnership with roughly 1,100 lenders. And a part of that partnership is that they have to report to one or more of those business credit bureaus. That's a condition of the partnership.
Okay.
Another condition of the partnership is they have to provide us with their underwriter approval requirements. Another big sort of challenge with an entrepreneur that's trying to get a loan is knowing what the approval requirements are. So, what could happen is you apply for a loan, you don't meet the requirement, you're declined, and then they tell you why you're declined, but you can't reapply for sometimes 6 to 12 months.
Hmm.
Right. So that goes away, again, not to really sell J Galt, but with the program that we have, That those are conditions. So condition one is anyone that we work with, they have to report to one or more of those business credit bureaus. And condition number two is they have to give us their approval requirements so that when we work with our members, we won't even have them apply if they're not going to be approved.
Yeah.
They only apply once they meet the requirements. And for that reason, every time they apply, they get approved because they won't apply if they won't get approved.
So this is really interesting information and something that I did not know prior to talking to you. I just thought that, you go out, you get your LLC, and that is supposed to protect you from mitigating risk or whatever. If there's some sort of bad business situation, separates your personal finances from like your business. I thought that it was just like you get an LLC and you're good. What you're kind of explaining is building a business credit and being in good standing so that you're able to attain more capital down the line. Do I have that correct?
Yeah, you have it absolutely correct. And do not feel bad. Everyone believes that.
Yeah, I thought it was as easy as that. I'm like, open up a business. Well, get an LLC first, and then you're good to go.
Yeah, actually, so one of the things that I did, one of the reasons why I added this finance suite tool in my toolkit was because as I started to talk through as a business plan, building a business plan, another thing that I work with entrepreneurs on is because they have a handful of members on their team, how to build my sweet spot is building a winning team. That's kind of my thing. So that's kind of what I was coming into the space focusing on, business plan and winning team. But as I started to work with more and more small businesses, it became very clear that the vexing issue is finance. That just became clear. So what I had to do was to determine, okay, what other tool can I provide? And that became this tool. One of my longtime mentors, he's had a very successful business for nearly 37 years, entrepreneur, 37 years. And he's not in any financial problems as far as not being able to borrow money, but all of his assets in his business is tied to him personally, and he's ready to retire and hand it off to his kids. But he can't yet because everything on that business he has personally guaranteed.
So how does he then move that into a business account? Is it a matter of like it's too late? He's had his business for so long. I mean, I'm sure it's not too late, but if he's running a full-fledged business and has been for a long time, I can imagine how challenging and how like tedious that is going to be to separate the two.
Yeah. So for any business, any small business, once you start the process of making that separation, on average, it takes about 12 months. Now,
Okay.
there are some factors that determine whether it's shorter or longer. And those factors are basically how capital intensive your business is and how much expenses you have. Because the more capital intensive and the more expenses you have, the quicker you can go through this process. If you don't have a lot of expenses, then it takes a little bit longer. But anyone that goes through the process that we have gets what we call corporate credit. Now, I can say his name's Dennis. So for Dennis, who I'm working with now, what he will end up doing, he will end up getting corporate credit. He has about another 7 months or so. When he gets corporate credit, then he can basically pay off his personal guarantees with his corporate credit. So once he does that, then he won't have personal liability on his business. It'll be the other thing I didn't mention, and I apologize for this. I keep saying him, but it's really the business entity that starts to borrow money, right? So it would be, I have a company called Peak Performance Leadership Institute. So it wouldn't be Cedric. It would be Peak Performance that would be eligible for financing, not Cedric. So what I'm doing with Dennis, it will be his, actually he has a C Corp. It'll be his C Corp that will be eligible, not him. Right now, it's him and his C Corp. Over time, once we get him the corporate credit on his C Corp, then his C Corp can buy out, if you will, the loans from him, and then it'll be on that business.
How early into your business should you be considering building your business credit?
Now, that's a great question. And the way I'll answer that question is I think if you have the funds to do it, and I say that very carefully because I know that to start a business, oftentimes you use your own money to get things going. So you may not have, the funds. I will say, and I'm happy to say, the program that I'm talking about is $7,000. So I'll just no secret there. So if you have that kind of funding, then you can do it at any time. But I am aware that for a small business, sometimes the timing may not be right for that. But if it is, then I would say anybody who's serious about having a small business that they can see lasting for 5-10 years or so should do this.
All right, we've all been there. You're looking for a new job and you're having no luck. This was my story 6 months ago. I had been applying to jobs like it was my full-time job. Every new task or achievement from work added to the resume. Anyone I saw on LinkedIn doing the job I wanted, I was sliding into those DMs. At one point, I almost gave up on writing a cover letter altogether. What was I doing wrong? When I met Kamara, it turned out I was doing a lot of things wrong. She revamped my resume with the proper keywords and taught me how to highlight my achievements. Even more, when I enrolled in the interview prep, she took me through a rigorous training of answering questions concisely and providing me with the strategies I needed to stand out in the interview. Since 2018, Kamara has helped professionals like you achieve life-changing transformations, jumping from 50K to 105K, all the way to 432K. Wait. 432K. I might need to hit her back up. Anyway, Kamara is hosting a masterclass providing you with the tools you need to maximize your earning potential and stand out in front of the hiring managers in today's competitive market. If you're ready to work with Kamara, sign up for her masterclass. You can go to dcowmember.com/event.
Thank you again for going through the financial piece of it, because I feel like every time I talk to a business owner and I talk about to a business owner and someone who is either just starting their business or is running their business and has been for a few years, when I ask them what their challenges are, the first thing is always about the money. I do appreciate you going through that. I want to talk about the next factor of why small businesses fail, which is inadequate management. And I really love this part because people don't really think about the management part of it and just the business acumen. When we think about starting a business, oftentimes it's like you had a big idea or there was a need that you were trying to fill, and then you start this business, but you don't know how to take it to the next step. So are you familiar with sort of the inadequate management part, and can you go into that a bit?
Yeah. So a couple of things I would start off with, and that is most businesses, whether they are, they have tens of thousands of employees or a handful of employees, the leadership needs what I would call third-party observation. I think no matter what business you have, you should have professionals assess how your business is organized. Me and your dad went through all kinds of team assessments. There's the 360 assessment. There's the Myers-Briggs, and then those ones. And the bigger organizations, I think, they can be effective. They can be. Sometimes if leadership doesn't buy in, they won't be. But that's a different thing. For small businesses, I think that there are very simple team assessment tools that I would suggest that you start with. There's a DISC assessment tool, which looks at all of them are like personality types, and they're also the type of work that you like doing.
Yeah.
And aligning that with the work that has to be done, right?
Yeah.
And it's amazing how, a person can be a rock star or horrible based on that alignment, right?
It's funny. I've done the disc analysis. I'm curious, what are you?
Take a guess.
I think you're conscientious. Is that what it is? What's C? C is it's
There's
dominant, influencer, or what's the S and the C?
so there's like more like a caring.
Okay.
And now I'm forgetting the S.
I
But
don't
I
know
am,
if it's like steady or something.
yeah,
They're like more routine
no,
people.
more statistics, like
Okay.
wanting more facts and data. But I am the C.
Okay.
Yeah,
I can see it.
I am the C. Very good. There's also working genius. So that's a newer one, but same concept, right? And that is with working genius, I'm actually becoming a big fan because what that does is it breaks down the type of work, generally speaking, from where you have the ideas on the front end. So you have people who love like ideation. They love that. You have other people who like implementation. They love to just check things off, check things off, check things off. And then you have people who it's called activation. They take that idea and they kind of evangelize it. Cheerleaders, sometimes they don't like to be called cheerleaders, but they really influence the room to adopt the idea. What Working Genius does, it's a very quick way to assess the type of work you like doing, right? And so I'm saying that to say the first thing that I would suggest for any team is to just do an assessment, right? Because what will happen if you don't is that between the leaders and different individuals, they will make assumptions on the type of work you like to do, the type of person you are, the type of worker you are, all those things. And there might be some truth and false in everything that they think. But when you do the assessment, it makes everyone sort of take a pause, kind of look at it, have discussions, and then align kind of how your team seems to be organized based on what they like doing against the work that has to be done. So that's the first part. Now we haven't talked about management leadership yet, but the first part is just the map. I call it the mapping. You're simply mapping what we say needs to be done with our team and who can do it. And then you can look at the gaps and all that kind of stuff. But I am big on, just being objective, right? Take the subjectivity out of it and all that kind of stuff and just be objective. Let's look at this thing and see what it tells us and then go from there. And then you mentioned management and leadership. So the other thing that I would suggest that a small business or an entrepreneur do is invest in training, leadership training, management training, team building training, all those types of things. Make the investment. And by the way, many small business associations, chambers of commerce, although many of those things are reasonable, if not free,
Yeah.
if you kind of do your research. But I would take the time to do that stuff because here is, from my perspective, the finance part is the vexing problem, right? That's the case. But I think the real magic happens with the people, right? And if you get the people to rally around what it is you guys are passionate about doing, and you set everyone up to succeed. Another workshop thing I'm doing. I shouldn't tell you this one, but I like writing, but I'm playing around with this concept of the me in team, because people always say there's no I in team, but there's a me in team, and that stands for me. I look at that as your accountability to the team. Right. And I say that to say that when you're starting to talk about a small business that has maybe 8 people,
Yeah.
right, really being able to find a place for everybody that's productive for both those people and the business, that's the magic. And I don't think you can do that without what I would call expertise.
Yeah. No, I love that. And I think that, in talking about businesses and the different sizes of businesses, oftentimes when people are just starting out, it really is just them. And so in order to grow and in order to scale, you do need to have a team, but people aren't always in the position to hire a team because you need money to hire a team. I want to know from your perspective, I know that you're working with several bigger businesses, but what is something that a new entrepreneur should focus on first? If they can't afford to hire a team and they can't they can't do all of the tasks and wear all of the hats and be perfect in every area, because you just can't. Like, what is the most important thing that they should be focusing on in order to grow their business?
Now you're challenging me. Great question. So I'm going
And
to
I
give you.
asked that question because I'm talking about myself. I'm asking for a friend, and that friend is me.
Okay. I think, and I'm going to give you a little bit of my perspective from even myself and from advice that I've gotten from oddly enough, my mentor's name is Cedric, and he has grown a very successful business in about 10 years. And I can't be more proud of him because he worked for Abbott as well. And he went out on a limb and he's doing really well. And his advice, and I've gotten this advice from other people, and I am kind of practicing it myself, and that is scaling is better than taking too big of how would I say it? Starting too big.
Mhm.
So if the smallest that you can start, like if you want to have, let's just say, I'm trying to think of a good, I'll give you an example. Eventually, I would love to have a few books. I would love to scale the things that I am doing,
Yeah.
but I have found a very specific lane that I'm in right now.
Hmm.
And a very specific lane is really helping a small business, with a very simple business plan, very simple tips on, building your team, because that's what I did in corporate America very effectively, I might add.
Yeah. You
Um,
said earlier you were building a winning team. That's what you're known for.
yeah, that's my thing.
I
That's my
love
job.
that.
But and then adding this finance piece, but that's very small. I don't see myself, if I am successful like I envision being, I see this as being one brick
Yeah.
in ultimate business over time. But I'm going to stay on this brick for a while, right?
Okay.
So I think that would be my thing. Find your brick, whatever that one thing is that's manageable, right? Depending on your time and your bandwidth and all that, and just work that brick.
I really like that. And my in my disc analysis, I'm a D. So I am very like action oriented. I'm like, let's get to the money.
Right.
So in all of that, patience is also something that I am not good at. And so in thinking about, I love what you mentioned about having that brick and sticking to that. And it goes back to like the consistency and knowing your why. And a lot of times I look at like other podcasters, if we're talking about my business specifically, who are just like hitting all of the goal. What it seems like is that they're hitting everything. And I'm like, wait, but I've been doing this a year now. So why haven't I hit those marks? So I do like what you said about sticking to sort of like staying in your lane and sticking to what works for you. So I
What's
appreciate
funny?
that.
What's funny is another one of my mentors with Abbott, because when I was out in the sales force, I was very competitive and very impatient as well, very impatient. And we had we kind of like the leaderboards, and I hate looking at that thing if I was not where I wanted to be. And one of my mentors, he kind of taught me the staying in your lane thing. It was a challenge, but it ended up working because what I ended up doing more is trying to work my own plan. And
Okay.
when I tried to work my own plan, and I was so focused on that, I did some things. I did
Yeah.
some. I mean, I hit some marks, and it didn't kind of, as they say, take me off my square, because I
Mm.
wasn't focused over here or over here. I knew that if I did the things that I needed to do at the highest level, nothing is because I'm a little bit, I can be a little conceited too, but I think if I do those things, I'm good.
Yeah. And there's power in having confidence, you know?
I would just say, well, I'll say this to cover that even a little bit more. I would say that a small business owner should invest in some sort of expert consulting, right?
Mhm.
Doesn't have to be a ton of money. And so I'm not suggesting that they spend a ton of money, but there are people that are really good, very good at helping you frame out your business, right? And if you don't have, like, if you love making cakes, that's your
Yeah.
thing, right? You love that. There's nothing wrong with loving making cakes, but also getting a coach to help you run that business, right? So I would say that if you put an umbrella over everything that we've discussed, there are certain people that are just really good and they're expert at helping small businesses. I mean, that's just what they do. And they're not experts at making cakes, right? They're not experts at, writing or whatever your business happens to be, but they are experts at business fundamentals. And if you don't, a part of this speak that I'm workshopping, as I said,
Yeah.
that's going to be centered around show business. And it's going to be how entrepreneurs and entertainers are in essence both in show business, right? You're passionate about, the show, but you have to also focus on the business.
Yeah.
If you don't focus on the business, then, there are these horrible stories of some of our best movie stars or singers who go broke,
Mhm.
right? And they've entertained us sometimes for decades, but because, maybe the wrong people were in their camps, I don't, who knows?
Yeah, sure.
Um, but, Whitney Houston went broke,
Mhm.
right? So not to turn this into a dire situation, but
No, but yeah, but you're right. I think it's also about hiring, and you've mentioned this, but hiring people that do the tasks that you aren't good at. Yeah. And I think a lot of businesses make the mistake on hiring people they like people that they
oh,
are going to get along with. We can be buddies. And I've worked now in corporate America for a long time, but I've seen that the best teams are actually people that you probably would never talk to outside of work, but they
that's right.
all have different skills. Sometimes when you're working with your close friends, it makes it harder to have that sort of candor with them when things go wrong, or you don't want to hurt feelings, or
Right.
maybe you guys are so much alike because you think the same, and
Yeah.
then business doesn't end up getting done. So I agree with you that, in building out a team, it's really about finding those people that have the different skill sets that you don't have.
Yeah, and I think the sort of takes away that let's just call it bias or whatever might lead to, again, this is my jam, lead to not having a winning team is objectivity. Have an assessment. Start there. Just start with an assessment and have someone walk you through what that assessment is meaning and telling, is saying, and then have the team discuss it, right? So all of like if you say this person, I'll just make this up. This person is always coming with all these ideas, but they never do any work. Let's just say that's the thing, right?
Yeah.
They never do any work. Well, then the question becomes, okay, where should they best go on this team, if that is indeed the case, right? Because there'll be work that requires identifying strategies,
Mm-hmm.
right? And if they're good at that, then that's if they're not good, that's different. But let's just say they're good at that.
Mm-hmm.
Well, you may have found a spot for them, and maybe you like to get things done.
Mm-hmm.
So you're over here and you're frustrated because all these new ideas keep coming your way and it doesn't feel like anything's getting done. But if you go over to the place where you can check things off, maybe you're happier,
Mm-hmm.
right? So it's a matter of saying, do I have the team in the right, like like sports, right? The winning teams, they can have all the talent in the world.
Mm-hmm.
We've seen it. If they're not put in the right position to win, you got one ball, right? If you got that one ball and you don't know how to distribute that ball, you're going to have a lot of. I think I can't remember which Olympics our basketball team lost, and we had
Mm-hmm.
all these superstars in the Olympics basketball, and we lost. There's
Mm-hmm.
no way we should have lost but there was one ball and we didn't know how to appropriately organize the team to
That's so
distribute that
true.
ball.
That's such a
So
good analogy. Yeah. That that's
you
a
can
good
tell
analogy.
that's my jam. I'm getting excited.
Yeah, no, and that's kind of been my thing too in starting this business and figuring out being an entrepreneur makes you very humble. It humbles you because you realize what you're good at but it's like what you're not good at is amplified. And so for me, I've been like, okay, these are the things I'm very good at. These are the things that I would rather do anything else but. And so I've been trying to figure out how to master this team building situation. And I even find it at work. I work on a pretty collaborative team as well. And there are times where we butt heads because we have a bunch of creatives in the room and no one that actually wants to like put the things into action. So it's like there's a lot of psychology around it.
Oh, yeah.
And I really enjoy that. So I'm glad that you're into it as I want to get into the third reason why small businesses fail, which you have talked about frequently, which is the ineffective business planning. And I think that you're an expert in this situation. And I can't wait to hear what you think. But oftentimes when you're putting together a business plan, you see these decks that are like 20, 30 pages long. It starts off with like your background, you're telling your whole childhood story. And then it's like you don't get to like the actual meat until the 20th page. But you
That's
had
right.
mentioned something really interesting earlier, which is when you work with your clients, you try to get at least like up to 2 pages of like your
Yep.
actual plan. How do you come up with that? And how do you take everything all these big ideas and consolidate that to 2 pages? And why
Yeah.
is 2 pages so important?
Yeah, no, that's a great question. And the I'm going to answer the second part first and say because you only have a handful of people. It's in one of the reasons why it's 2 pages. And full disclosure, 2 pages might end up being four. Two is really what I try to at least start with. And here's why, and here's how. The how is, I should say, here's how. Let's put why to the side. So the how is you have kind of a discovery session where, depending on the size of the team, everyone says, in the next few years, so there's two things. In the next few years, here is where I want this organization to be.
Mm-hmm.
So that's one whole exercise. On the other side, it's, if we don't fix these things in the next few years, we're at risk of, not being successful. So you have on the one side, here are the things that we want to end up, kind of aspiring to. And on the other side, here are the big things that's in front of us that that we need to address. Doesn't mean that those things are true, but the exercise is just to start there. And then there's a discussion with the group, right? That the
Mm-hmm.
group determines, what stays on the list, so to speak, right? And then there's almost a forcing function to determine, okay, we now have these 5 things on this list, whatever it happens to be. What's the biggest thing that we all agree within the next 12 to 24 months? Because the other thing that makes that plan, because a lot of the business plans that you do in corporate America, you do the 3 to 5 year plan.
Right.
We're not doing a 3 to 5 year plan. We're doing a 1 to 2 year
Okay.
plan, right?
Fascinating. Okay.
So you do a 1 to 2 year plan, and the 1 to 2 year plan is you take those 4 or 5 things that end up rising to the top, and say, now what's the number one or two things on that list? So you're forcing that small business to identify the thing that everyone's going to rally around for the next 12 months or
Mm-hmm.
24 months. And so it's a scaled down, focused plan that has one main thing. Two at the most. I try not to do two because then it gets low, but one main thing for the most part. I'll give you an example. This is the workshop thing I'm doing here. So the workshop thing I'm doing is you have a beauty salon. It's been flat. It has not been growing revenue over the last couple of years. And it's starting to, expenses are starting to grow. So that's the issue. And everyone's agreeing. So you go through that exercise that I just mentioned, and everyone comes to the agreement that we have to focus on growing our business, our revenue in the next 12 months. That becomes the thing. We have to grow in the next 12 months. So now, how do we turn that into one strategic goal? An example would be, let's just say it's called Amber's Beauty Salon. So to grow Amber's Beauty Salon, the revenue by 10% in the next 12 months. That becomes the one strategic goal that you have, right?
Okay.
That's it. So now, how do I then establish and develop tactical goals to support that goal, right? And so an example would be, okay, I now know I want to grow, and that's a SMART goal, by the way, because it's specific, it's measurable, it's relevant, it's achievable, relevant, and time bound. So all those fit into that SMART goal model. But the tactical goals that will support that, a few examples. One might be to develop a loyalty program that increases your monthly customer visits from 200 to 300 within 6 months. So you now have a tactical goal to support that goal.
Yeah.
That's one. Two, to increase your online booking by 50% by some sort of a website focus, a social media campaign, and maybe invest in an automated booking like Booksy or something like that.
Sure.
So that's number two. Three, you might have a like a special event per month at your beauty salon to increase, your revenue by 20% within the next 6 months. So that's just an example of three tactical goals to support your 12-month goal of a 10% increase, right? Now, the reason why it's 2 pages is because what I just gave you was a framework. So now you have to then put some meat to that framework, and that meat's going to become, hopefully about 2 pages worth of activities that this team's going to have to then execute, right?
Wow.
So
You made it sound so simple.
Yeah.
No, but and I guess and it's not simple. You have to you actually have to execute the plan. But I like that it's simplified, because I feel like our attention spans and all of the ideas that we have in our head of what we want to do, it's so easy to get off track. But when you have that one goal, and then you have the one main goal, and then the 3 tactical goals that are going to get you to achieve that main goal using the SMART method, that seems achievable.
It's very achievable. And here's the thing. So the real key, and this kind of goes again to my jam, that the winning team.
Totally.
The real key is the team. The team is the key here, because what you're going to have to do is there's going to be a whole lot of accountability that's required. There's going to have to be a whole lot of discipline, because here is what could happen. What could happen is let's just say that beauty salon has 8 employees, just making that up. If the 8 employees just aren't into it, right, then that plan won't work.
Right.
Right. And that's where, again, I would say having the coach and the consultant help you. But if they're not into it, it's not going to work. Or if let's just say that that special event per month, if that's not done right, and by right, I mean, you don't want to spend a lot of money and expenses to do that, because it defeats the purpose. So there's some discipline and accountability that has to go into building out that plan, again, so it doesn't become an expensive hobby. So having that team understand and be on board, and having a coach to help guide you through that. For example, you may want to have at that special event some well-catered thing that's going to cost you money. That coach is going to say no. So that kind of thing. So bringing it all to life, that's the hard stuff.
Yeah.
But building that plan doesn't have to be this 20, 30 page thing that no one's going to do it.
Absolutely. And then I want to get to the final mishap or the final reason that small businesses fail. And it's you have a marketing background, as do I. So one of the fourth most common reason is marketing mishaps. And so what I was reading was that business owners often fail to prepare for the marketing needs of the company. And so if people don't know about you, if you don't have that target audience that you're reaching constantly, then that's where you fall short of reaching your goals. And I want to ask you this, and it's kind of off of my notes, but I had been doing some freelancing with some small businesses in the past, previously working on their marketing. And I had a particular client that didn't want to be the face of her business. She wasn't comfortable with being on social media. And, now social media is kind of king in terms of marketing your business. You have to have the reels, you have to do the Instagram like posts, you have to be on LinkedIn, all of the things. And she didn't like that, but she was really passionate about her business. I want to know from some of the businesses that you've worked with, have you ever worked with somebody that doesn't want to be the face of their business, and sort of what can they do to market their business and get the word out if they don't want to be on an Instagram reel?
Wow, I've not had that. So the short answer is I've not faced that, but so I am, on another note, I am working with a marketing agency right now for my business. And from what I'm getting educated on this new marketing approach with having content, the digital, the content, the everything, like everything around it. And based on my understanding, I guess my short answer is you just have to do it.
Yeah.
I mean, if you don't do it, you just won't appear anywhere. So it's just going to be, I mean, unless people just really, depending on your business, if people just really know who you are and the market that you are after, they just like, I guess Michael Jordan doesn't have to market, but or some of these celebrities. But other than that, it just has to be done.
I mean, do you think that there's still room for, there's always going to be word of mouth, but are flyers still a thing? Are, these traditional forms of media? I feel like that's almost more work than posting something on Instagram.
Yeah, I don't. So I have a networking activity that I am hosting next week, about 10 miles from where I live. I invested in a kind of like a marketing event planner to do this thing because I'm still introducing myself in my community, and it's more social media driven. But I live in a small, almost like a little country community. Mm-hmm. So I do go to the local businesses and give my information, but it has a QR code. So it's I guess you can call it a flyer, but it's really hit the code so you can really see everything.
Yeah.
Kind of thing. So I just think that's where it's at.
Yeah, I agree. I was curious because you work with so many businesses. I was wondering if you ran into the same thing. This was great. I want to know if people want to work with you in getting their business together, their finances together, their business plan, all the things that we've discussed today. How can they find you?
Yeah, so the easiest thing is just to email me. I'm at Singleton, SINGLETON at Jaygalt, JGALT.io. And that's the easiest way. And then we can determine what you need, and hopefully I can help you out.
This was great. Thank you so much. I really enjoyed our conversation, and I think people are going to walk away with a wealth of information that they did not already know. So this was cool.
No, this was great. I think I may have mentioned it before, but I think congratulations to you too, because I've watched now about maybe 6 or 7 of your podcasts.
I appreciate that.
No, I have, and I really do like your style. It's to me, very inquisitive. And then from the curiosity comes real good, in my opinion, robust conversations. So, no, congrats.
That's it for this week's episode of A Bright Idea Podcast. Today's guest was Cedric Singleton with J.Galt Financial Suite. If you're ready to take your business to the next level, you can work with J.Galt by going to their website or reaching out to Cedric on all socials. As always, follow A Bright Idea Podcast on all social media platforms, and if you're enjoying the show, please leave us a review. It really helps us spread the word. I'll see you all next week. Until next time, I'm Amber Key.